Alrighty, Miss Reed, this is chapter 4, Life of Pi. We already know. Let's get started. Okay, our good old nation was just 7 years old as a republic when it became bigger by a small territory. Pondicherry entered the Union of India on November 1st, 1954. The civic achievement called for another. A portion of grounds in Pondicherry. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because Pondicherry does not sound very correct. Botanical garden was made of available rent-free and exciting business opportunities, and IO beyond India had a brand new zoo designed for running according to the most modern biological sound principles. It was a huge zoo spread out in numberless acres, big enough to require a train to explore it. Though it seemed to get smaller as I grew older, the train included. Now it's so small it fits in my head. You must imagine a hot and humid place, bathed in sunshine and bright colors. The riot of flowers in incessant. There are trees, shrubs, and climbing plants in profusion, pebbles, glamorous flames of the forest, red silk cottons, jacarandas, mongoose, jackfruits, and so many others that would remain unknown if they didn't have neat labels as their couples, who steal glances at each other and shyly, and whose hands flutter in the air, happening to touch not the last of your surprises, the only moment that you startled by the furious outburst coming from a great troop of monkeys, only outdone in volume by the shrill cries, strange birds, you come to turnstile. You distractedly pay a small sum of money. You move on. You see a low wall. What can you expect beyond a low wall? Certainly not a shallow pit with mighty Indian rhinoceroses. But that is what you find. And when you do turn your head and see the elephant that was there all along, so big that you didn't even notice it, and it was a pond, realize those are hippopotamuses floating in the water. The more you look, the more you see, the more you are in Zoo Town. Before moving, father ran a large hotel in Madras. An abiding interest in animals led him to the zoo business. A natural transition, you might think, from hotel keeping to zookeeping. Not so. In many ways, running a zoo is a hotel keeper's worst nightmare. Consider the guests never leave their rooms. They expect not only lodging but full board. They receive constant flow of visitors, some of them whom are noisy and unruly. One has to wait until they soundtear their balconies, so to speak, before one can clean their rooms. And then one has to wait until the tire of the view return to the rooms before they can clean the balconies. And then there is so much cleaning to do, for the guests are unhygienic as alcoholics. Each guest is very particular about his or her diet, constantly complains about the slowness in service, never eats, and never ever tips. No, to speak frankly, many are sexual deviants, either terribly repressed and the subject to explosion of frenzied lasciviousness, for openly depraved in their case, regularly affronting management with gross outrages of free sex and incest. Ooh. Are these the sorts of guests you would want to welcome in your inn? The zoo was the source of some pleasure and many headaches for Mr. Patel, founder, owner, director, head of the staff of the 53, and my father. Also, I lost a nail. I lost a nail, so I gotta go do that again. But it's okay. To me, it was paradise on earth. I have nothing to do. The fondest memories of growing up in a zoo. I lived the life of a prince. Luxuriant grounds to play about. What a place had such a menagerie. My alarm clock during my childhood was a pride of lions. They were no Swiss clocks, but they were lions that could be counted upon in the roar their heads off between 5:30 to 6 every morning. Breakfast was punctuated by the shrieks of cries, howler monkeys, hill mayans, and Moluccan cockatoos. I left for school, and the benevolent gaze, not only by my mother, but of bright-eyed otters and burly American bison, and stretching and yawning orange utans. I looked up as I ran under some trees. Otherwise, people might excrete on me. Better to go on the trees that sheltered the large colonies of fruit bats. The only assault there at an early hour was the bats' discordant concerts and squeaking of chatterings. On my way, I might stop by the terraria to look for some shiny frogs, glazed bright green, yellow, and deep blue, and brown, pale green. Or it might be birds. They caught my attention: pink flamingos, black swans, and one wattled cassowaries. Or something smaller: silver diamond doves, cape glossy starlings, peach-faced lovebirds, Nande conures, orange-fronted parakeets. Not likely that the elephant, the seal, the big cats, or the bears would be up for doing, but the baboons and the mangabees and the gibbons and the deer and the tapirs and the llamas and the giraffes and the mongoose were early risers every morning before I was out to make it. I had one last impression that... Ooh, this is a long chapter. Alrighty. Was both ordinary and unforgettable. A pyramid of turtles, the iridescent snout of the mandrill, and the stately silence of a giraffe. The obese yellow open mouth of a hippo, the beak and claw-climbing macaque parrot up a wire fence and greeting the claps of showbills bills, the senile expression of camel, and all these riches were have an elephant search your claws in the friendly hope of finding a hidden nut, an orange utan, pick through your hair for tick snacks, wheeze disappointment at an empty pantry. Your head is, I wish I could convey perfection as a seal slipping into the water, spider monkey swinging from the point to point, or a lion merely turning its head. But the language founders in such seas, better to picture it in your head if you want to feel it. In the zoos, in nature, as best times to visit are sunrise and sunset. That is when most animals come to life. They stir and leave their shelter to tiptoe into the water's edge. They show their raiments. They sing their songs. They turn each other to perform their rites. The reward for watching eyes to listening ears great. I spent more hours than I could count in a quiet witness to highly mannered, manifold expressions of life. The graced out planet is something so bright, loud, weird, and delicate as stupefy the senses. I have heard nearly as much as nonsense about zoos as I have about God and religion. Well-meaning but misinformed people think animals in the wild are happy. because they are free. These people usually have a large, handsome predator in mind, a lion, a cheetah. The life of a gnu or aardvark is really escalated. The image, this wild animal roaming around the savannah, just digestive walks after eating prey and accepted its lot previously, or going for calisthenic runs to slim after over nudging. The image, this animal overseeing is its offsprings proudly and tenderly, the whole family watching the setting of the sun from the limbs of the trees, sighs of pleasure. The life of the animal in the simple, noble, and meaningful. They imagine then it is captured by wicked men and thrown into tiny jails. Its happiness is dashed, yearns mightily for freedom, and all it can escape being denied its freedom for too long. The animal becomes a shadow of its self, and the sprite broken. So some people imagine this is not the way it is. Animals in the wild led lives to compulsion, necessity within the unforgiving social hierarchy in the environment, where the supply of the fear high and the supply of food low, and where territory must constantly be defended and parasites forever endured. What is the meaning of freedom in such context? Animals in the wild are in practice free neither in space nor in time, nor in the personal relations. In theory, that is a simple physical possibility. An animal could pick up and go flaunting all the social conventions and boundaries proper to its species, but such an event is less likely to happen for a member of its own species, say a shopkeeper with all the usual ties to the family-friendly society, the drop everything for a walk from his life with only a spare change in his pockets and the clothes on his frame. If an old man boldest a move, intelligent creatures won't wander from the place to place, stranger to all, behold to none. Why would an animal with such temperament far more conservative? For that the animals are conservative, one might even say reactionary. The smallest changes can upset them, though they want things to be just so. They, day after day, month after month, surprises are hardly disagreeable to them. You see this in their spatial relationships. An animal inhabits their space, whether a zoo or the wild. In the same way, chess pieces move around a chessboard significantly. There is more happenstance, no more freedom involved in the whereabouts of the lizard, bear, deer, and the location of the knight in the chessboard. Both speak pattern and purpose. In the wild, animals stick to the same paths for the same pressing reasons. Season after season, in a zoo, if the animal is not in its normal place, it is regular posture or usual hour, it means something. It may be the reflection of none more than a minor change in its environment. A coiled horse left out by its keeper has made a menacing impression. A puddle has formed into the bothers the animal, the latter making a shadow, but it could mean something much worse. It at its worst, it could be the most dreaded thing to a zoo director, a symptom, a herald, a trouble to come, a reasons to inspect, the dung cross-examination, the keeper to summon the vet. All this because a stork is not standing where it usually stands. Ooh-wee. But let me pursue for a moment only one aspect of the question. If you went home and kicked down the front door, chased the people who lived out there into the street, and then they said, "Go, you are free, free as a bird, go, go," do you think that they would shout and dance for joy? They wouldn't. Birds are not free. The people you've just evicted would sputter with, "What's right? Do you throw us out? This is our home. We own it. We have lived here for years. We're calling the police, you scoundrel." Don't we say there is no place like home? That's certainly what animals feel. Animals are territorial. That is the key to their minds. Only a familiar territory will allow them to fulfill the two relentless imperatives of the wild: the avoidance of enemies, the getting of the food, water, and biologically sounded zoo enclosure, whether it is a cage, coral territorium, aviary, or aquarium. It is just another territory, particular only if it is the size and proximity to human territory that is such a smaller than what it would be in nature, stands to what we have done for ourselves with houses. We bring together in small space what the wild is spread out, whereas it is next to the berries somewhere else, all of them infested with lions, snakes, ants, leeches, and poison ivy. Now the river flows through the taps and hands reached, and we can wish next to where we sleep. We can eat where we have cooked, and we can surround the whole with a protective wall to keep us clean, warm, an enclosure that is equivalent for an animal. Within the noteworthy absence of the fireplace or like present in every human habitation, finding within all its places needs a lookout place, resting for eating and drinking, for bathing, grooming, etc. The finding that there is no need to go hunting for appearing 6 days, weeks, an animal will take possession of its zoo space. In the same way, it could lay claim to a new space in the wild, exploring it and marking it out in the normal ways of its species, and the sprays of urine, perhaps. One less moving in a ritual is done, and the animal has settled. It will not feel nervous tenant, and it will be less like a prisoner, but rather the landholder, and it will behave the same way within the enclosure as it would be in its territory with the wild, including defending its tooth nail should be invaded, such as an enclosure of subjectivity. Neither better does worse to the animal and its condition in the wild, so long as it fulfills its animal's needs. One might even argue that the animal could choose that's intelligent. It would opt for living in the zoo, since the major difference between the zoo and the wild is the absence of parasites, enemies, and the abundance of food in the first, and the respective abundance and the scarcity of the second. Think about it yourself. Would you rather put up with a Ritz with free room service and ultimately access to a doctor, or be homeless without a soul to care for you? But an animal are incapable of such discernment within the limits of their nature, but they make do what they have. A good zoo is a place of carefully worked out coincidence, exactly where an animal says to us, "Stay out." This, with its urine or other secretion, we say it to stay in with our barriers. Under such conditions of diplomatic peace, all animals are content with what we can relax and have a look at each other. In the literature can be found examples of animals that could escape but did not, but did return. There's a case of chimpanzees whose cage door was left unlocked and swung open. Increasingly anxious, the chimps began to shriek and slam the door shut repetitively with a deafening clang each time, until the keeper notified the visitors, hurried over to the situation. A herd of roe deer in the European zoo stepped out of its corral when the gate was left open. Frightened by visitors, the deer bolted for the nearby forest, which had its own herd of wild roe deer, could support more. Nonetheless, the zoo roe deer quickly returned to the corral. In another zoo, the worker was walking to his work site in the early hour, carrying planks of wood, and then the horror, the bear emerged from the morning mist, heading straight for him. Confident pace, the man dropped the planks and ran for his life. The zoo staff immediately started searching for the escaped bear. They found it back in the enclosure, having climbed down into its pit the way it had climbed out. By way of a tree that had fallen over, it was thought that the noise of the planks of the wood falling to the ground had frightened it. But I don't insist. I don't mean that to defend zoos. Close them all down if you want, and let us hope that what wildlife remains can survive in what is left of the natural world. I know zoos are no longer in people's good graces. Religion faces some problems. Certain illusions about freedom pledge them both.